My mother-in-law wants me to bear a child with my male classmate. 1 month into the marriage, I already regretted it. My mother-in-law never avoided my husband when changing clothes. After showering, she would walk around the living room wearing only her underwear. I reminded him many times, but my husband didn't care at all. Instead, my mother-in-law said, "What's the big deal? Your husband was nursed by me." The summer heat was intense, and the night was quiet. The whole family was watching TV in the living room. Suddenly, my mother-in-law, fresh out of the shower, appeared, wearing only her underwear, wandering around the living room. I furrowed my brows and sighed. Here we go again. I had lost count of how many times this had happened. I walked over to my mother-in-law and whispered, "Mom, please be more careful and put on proper clothes before coming out." Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law loudly said, "What's the big deal? It's our own home, why make such a fuss?" I felt a bit embarrassed, frowned, and continued, "Vincent and Kevin are still here, and you're acting like this." My mother-in-law was indifferent, spreading her legs wide as she sat on the sofa, completely unaware of any exposure. Those two were raised on my milk, why should I care? I sat back down feeling disappointed, quietly glancing at my husband and father-in-law, but they didn't seem to mind at all. It was Kevin, who had just started college, who shot my mother-in-law a look of disgust. I couldn't help but feel a bit relieved at least there was one sane person in the house. When it was time for bed, I couldn't resist complaining to my husband. "Look at how your mom acts at home. Why don't you ever tell her to dress properly?" My husband didn't take it seriously. No matter what, I was the one who raised her. What's there to be embarrassed about between a mother and son? Seeing his stubborn attitude, I was at a loss for words. After a long day, I was ready to sleep, but the noise from my in-laws next door kept me awake. I couldn't understand where two people nearing 50 got so much energy. Listening to the moans next door, I couldn't help but turn to my husband to complain. But I found he was already asleep. I thought I could just endure it and it would pass. But the next day, as soon as I got home, my husband was taking a shower, and he actually called my mother-in-law in to scrub his back. Seeing my mother-in-law about to enter the bathroom, I hurriedly took the items from her hands. "Mom, I'll do it. You should go rest." But she was reluctant. "I should do it. You don't know how to scrub him properly. I've always been the one helping Vincent." And with that, she went into the bathroom on her own. I was a bit shocked, thinking that once Vincent came out, I definitely needed to have a serious talk with him. I waited in the living room, and before long, Vincent actually came out completely naked. I hurriedly urged him to go back and put on some clothes before coming out. Grandma was still at home. But to my surprise, he said he was going to Grandma's room to get the razor, and then he just went straight in. I could faintly hear their conversation. I was utterly stunned. That night, I wanted to have a proper talk with Vincent about this. Instead, he cheerfully pulled out a flashy, sexy piece of lingerie. He even asked me how it ended up left in the bathroom. I looked at the brightly colored lingerie and shook my head, saying it wasn't mine. Not long after, Grandma just opened the door and came in, asking if my husband had seen the lingerie she left in the bathroom. Seeing the item in Vincent's hand, she smiled and teased him a few times, then took the lingerie and left. After that, I told Vincent about what had happened today. Vincent said it was because he was closer to his mother. It had been that way since he was a child, and he was used to it. "A grown son should avoid his mother. You need to be more careful from now on." Vincent said a few perfunctory words and then went straight to sleep. In the middle of the night, noises came from next door again. I looked at Vincent, who was asleep, and the thought of divorce suddenly crossed my mind. But then I reminded myself that Vincent and I had loved each other for 3 years before reaching this point, and I let the thought go. A few more months passed. During these months, my mother-in-law and Vincent continued to do as they pleased. Until one day, I came home from work. As soon as I opened the door, I heard my mother-in-law crying and shouting. Only after asking about the situation did I realize that Vincent's younger brother Kevin actually liked men. Now he's even broken ties with the family for his boyfriend and refuses to come home. My mother-in-law cried and threw a tantrum. How can Kevin like men? He's never even been in a relationship. There are so many beautiful girls, and he doesn't like any of them. How could he fall for that burly man? Seeing my mother-in-law like this, and recalling Kevin's previous behavior, I couldn't help but feel a bit schadenfreude. I kept telling you to dress properly every day, but you wouldn't listen. And now look, your son likes men and you're satisfied? No. Our family line cannot be broken. This matter cannot just be let go, my mother-in-law said resolutely. She was still determined not to give up that morning, but by evening she had coaxed Kevin back home. Seeing her fake, kindly face, I just wanted to laugh. Kevin's boyfriend Jake was a tall, thin man who gave off a somewhat dark vibe, not quite matching the sunny, sturdy Kevin. Grandma, smiling as she served Jake some food, told Kevin that these were all minor issues and that she wasn't an unreasonable person. Kevin's happiness was what mattered most. Her words were full of support for Kevin's relationship. If I hadn't known she had spent the whole afternoon scheming how to introduce Kevin to a match, I might have believed her. Kevin hadn't expected Grandma to back him, and he was so moved he tearfully promised to take good care of her in the future, even saying that when she got old, he and Jake would look after her together. Hearing this, my mother-in-law's face darkened for a moment, and the smile on her face almost slipped away. I was so embarrassed my face turned red. After dinner, she suddenly called me over, grabbed my hand, and said, "Evelyn, you know Kevin's situation, and he doesn't even know when he'll come around. I'm always uneasy in my heart. You and Vincent have been married for so long now, it's about time you had a child, isn't it?" I was stunned and pulled my hand away. "Mom, you've forgotten I'm not planning to have children with Vincent. My health isn't good, and the doctor advised against it." Her face immediately darkened. "That's all lies from the doctors. Why can't you have a child? Back in our day, conditions were terrible, our health was poor, and nutrition was lacking, yet we still had 2 children who turned out fine. Are you deliberately trying to upset me?" After saying that, she stomped her foot and left. That night, Vincent cautiously approached me and said, "Honey, we've been married so long now, maybe it's time we..." Here we go again. I shoved him away and pointed at his nose, saying, "Vincent, what did we say when we got married? Have you forgotten what the doctor said? What if the doctor made a mistake? Shouldn't we?" Vincent said hesitantly. I threw his pillow out and pushed him outside. "If you want to check, go check yourself. You're sleeping out tonight, and don't bother coming back to sleep here anymore." I slammed the door shut with a bang. Hearing the noise, my mother-in-law came out to see what was going on. When she saw Vincent standing outside, she immediately understood and started yelling at the door. I was about to go out and argue with her when I heard Vincent stopping her, saying, "Mom, stop it. This whole thing today was your fault. Just go back, don't say anything else. Evelyn's had a long day and needs to rest." My mother-in-law said angrily, "You 2 unfilial children, are you trying to drive me crazy?" The sound of her slippers clacking echoed for a while, then everything outside fell silent. I softened inside. Vincent was still good to me. Maybe I should go see the doctor another day. My mother-in-law had been angry these past few days, ignoring me as if I didn't exist. Knowing I hated her wandering around the house in a disheveled state, she deliberately provoked me by not dressing properly and parading in front of me. Vincent, on the other hand, had been very kind to me these days, checking on me every day, buying me many gifts, and no longer mentioning having children. Thinking of how good Vincent had been to me, I decided to go to the hospital for another checkup. Maybe I had taken better care of myself these past few years. The doctor said that if I paid attention to nutrition during pregnancy, giving birth should be no problem. I couldn't wait to get home to tell Vincent the news, but as soon as I opened the door and saw my mother-in-law's face, I swallowed the words back down, wiped the smile off my face, and calmly walked past her inside. But today, my mother-in-law seemed different. Not only was she not angry about my ignoring her, she actually came over happily and grabbed my hand as soon as she saw me. I was a bit puzzled and didn't pull away right away, just let her lead me over. She pulled me to the table, which was covered with all my favorite dishes, and thoughtfully pulled out a chair for me. Seeing her so happy, I thought maybe Kevin had changed his mind and accepted the match she set up. But when I looked at Vincent sitting at the table with his head down, I immediately dismissed that idea. I figured she was going to pressure me about having a baby again. I was still upset about what happened a few days ago, and even if I were ready now, I didn't want to share such good news with her so soon. Mom, don't think I'll agree just because of this. I said I'm not having a baby, and that's final. I stood up, ready to leave, but my mother-in-law grabbed my arm. All right, no baby. Evelyn, don't be mad yet, sit down, sit down. I made a whole table of your favorite dishes, try them first. I didn't expect my mother-in-law to be so easy to talk to today. Seeing her soften, I felt awkward about making things worse, so I sat down. For some reason, Vincent was unusually quiet today. When I came back, he didn't say a word. Evelyn, this is fresh orange juice I just squeezed for you. Try it. Taking the juice, I felt something was off, though I couldn't quite put my finger on it. On impulse, I took a sip. Just then, I saw a flicker of triumph in my mother-in-law's eyes. Before I could say anything, I immediately got up, ran to the bathroom, and spit out the orange juice in my mouth, then hurried back to my room and locked the door. Even though I spat out the juice, I had accidentally swallowed some. Not long after, I started feeling weak all over, my head spinning. What exactly does my mother-in-law want? Is she trying to drug me to take advantage of me for the sake of her grandson? And Vincent? Is he in cahoots with her too? There was no time to think further before a loud knocking came at the door. Evelyn, are you okay? My mother-in-law asked from outside. I said nothing, tightly pinching myself to stay awake, but I quickly lost strength and my consciousness grew increasingly hazy. There's no sound inside anymore, hurry in, be careful. Grandma's voice rang out again. With a click, the door opened. I groggily saw Vincent come in, felt his gaze, and sadly closed my eyes. I'm dizzy, Mom said this medicine works, hurry up. No wonder Vincent was acting so strange today. How dare he do this? Even if I really get pregnant, I won't forgive him. Before I could get angry, Vincent actually went out again and even closed the door behind him. Just when I thought Vincent had a conscience, a noise suddenly came from beside me. I turned to look and found Kevin lying next to me. So Vincent had sent him over just now? Why would he do such a thing? Before I could even think it through, the usually dazed Kevin suddenly sat up, unbuckled his belt, and slowly moved closer to me. As he got nearer and nearer, I tried to struggle but couldn't muster any strength or make a sound. He closed his eyes and pressed down slowly, and I looked at him in despair. Just when I thought he was going to do something to me, he suddenly pulled away and started rocking the bed slowly on one side. I breathed a sigh of relief. He looked up and caught my eye, exclaiming with surprise, "Sister-in-law, you're not dizzy?" He shoved something into my mouth. Great, quickly eat this. At that moment, footsteps sounded outside the door. He immediately jumped onto the bed and covered us both with the blanket. Mother-in-law gently opened the door, saw the writhing blanket, and smirked crookedly, "Now it's done." Then she slowly closed the door. Once the footsteps faded, Kevin quickly got down and locked the door from the inside. At this moment, my mind slowly cleared, and I regained some strength. Before I could ask Kevin what was going on, he knelt down directly in front of me. "Sister-in-law, you have to help me, I beg you. Only you can help me. What's going on? Tell me everything from the beginning." Kevin's eyes were a little red. "Mom sent Jake to prison, saying Jake tried to rape her." "How is that possible?" She must have deliberately not worn clothes to frame Jake. She's forcing me to go on blind dates, or else she won't let Jake go. Last night, I heard her and my brother planning something about the two of us. Kevin's voice dropped. I don't even know what my brother is thinking. After I heard that, I hid an antidote. When Mom gave me orange juice today, I poured it out when she wasn't looking. But I really have no interest in women. Sister-in-law, what should I do? My brother is coming over soon. Looking at Kevin, who was at a loss, I thought about what to do. Suddenly, a quarrel broke out outside. Vincent, what are you doing? Kevin isn't done yet. Mom, I can't take it anymore. Can't we just not have a child? Do you think I'm doing this for myself? I'm doing it for you. What if Evelyn finds out you can't have children and later, when she wants kids, she despises you and goes to someone else? Having a child will solidify your relationship. But Evelyn doesn't want children, and the doctor said, Vincent, you need to think this through. No matter what, Evelyn can still have children, but you can't. Who would want to marry a man who can't have kids? Besides, your brother isn't an outsider, a child would still carry the Wang family bloodline. I've calculated it, today is Evelyn's ovulation day. If luck is on our side, this time it will work. Mom, do you want to try again? No way. Vincent. It's too late to regret now. If Evelyn finds out what you've done, it's over for both of you. I'm your mother, and I'm doing this for your own good. I won't harm you. Listen to me, go back. I'm begging you. The noises outside stopped, and the footsteps gradually faded away. No wonder my mom asked me to come, sister-in-law. Kevin muttered to himself, looking at me without saying a word. My nails dug tightly into my flesh. After a long while, I lifted my head. All right, I'll help you. Just pretend you know nothing, let them think we've done what we were supposed to. Okay, sister-in-law, I'll do whatever you say. After a while, Vincent came in, punched Kevin, who was on the bed, and drove the terrified Kevin out. I kept my eyes closed but could feel Vincent watching me the whole time. I felt a bit uncomfortable, not knowing how to face this man. Judging that enough time had passed, I opened my eyes and looked straight at him. Seeing that I was awake, Vincent immediately turned away, not daring to meet my gaze. Turn around, I said coldly. Vincent slowly turned his back to me, and I slapped him hard. He didn't fight back, not even daring to open his eyes to look at me. I slapped him 2 more times and told him to get out. Judging by my mother-in-law's attitude, she definitely wouldn't let me divorce Vincent easily, but I wasn't eager to divorce for now either. After all, if she was going to do this, she had to pay some price. These past few days, I deliberately ignored Vincent. Maybe he felt guilty and didn't dare speak to me, but he showered me with gifts as if they were free. Sensing the time was right, during dinner I pretended to feel nauseous and rushed to the bathroom. When I came out, I was holding a pregnancy test stick in my hand. I threw the pregnancy test stick at Vincent. Look at the mess you've made. Grandma immediately snatched it up to look, and when she saw the 2 lines, her eyes crinkled with a smile as she hurried over to support me. Oh my, you're pregnant. From now on, you have to be more careful. Whatever you want to eat, just tell me, and I'll make it for you. From now on, you're the treasure of our family, and I'll listen to everything you say. I sneered inwardly. This was your doing. I took the opportunity to send Vincent to another room. Whenever Grandma didn't dress properly, I pretended to feel nauseous, deliberately grossing her out. She would scowl but still get dressed properly. Every time she cooked, I would say it tasted bad and make her redo it many times. I even picked some difficult dishes to prepare, forcing her to come up with new meals for me every day. Whenever my mother-in-law got angry, I would rub my belly, saying the baby was hungry. Even though she was exhausted and her back ached, she didn't dare say a word to me. After she found out I was pregnant, she even set up an unlimited spending account for me. I didn't even look at the prices when I bought things, If I did, I always picked the most expensive ones. My mother-in-law stared at the dense bills in her account, grinding her teeth in silent fury. I didn't let her off the hook at night either. Whenever I heard her and my father-in-law talking, I would immediately pretend to have a stomach ache, call her over, and keep her busy running around for me. I've gained weight these past few days, really looking like I'm pregnant, but my mother-in-law has grown noticeably haggard. I thought she would give up after the false pregnancy, but one night I overheard her telling Vincent that if this baby wasn't a boy, she'd just pull the same trick again. Vincent meekly disagreed but didn't try to convince her otherwise. Watching my mother-in-law's smug face, I bit back the urge to slap her. No rush, let's see who's laughing last. Even though she was swamped after I got pregnant, she never let up on Kevin, constantly pushing him to go on blind dates whenever she had the chance. Once, when she forced Kevin to pick a young girl for a blind date, Kevin looked at me for help. I deliberately distracted my mother-in-law and pointed to a photo of a girl. Kevin caught my meaning. When my mother-in-law came back, she picked up the photo of that girl. Let's go with this one. All right, my son has great taste. This is Sophie. I like her too. I'll arrange it right away, and you'll meet her tomorrow. After she left, Kevin asked me, sister-in-law, I don't like girls. Why are you still? Don't worry, as long as this blind date goes badly, no one will set you up again. After all, that girl was Grace's daughter. I told Kevin to get along well with Sophie first. A few days later, my mother-in-law was grinning at her phone, unable to contain her smile. Evelyn, look, Grace said Sophie has a good impression of Kevin, and Kevin just said he has feelings for Sophie. Ha ha ha, what a double blessing. Their relationship progressed rapidly, and it wasn't long before marriage talks came up. Seeing the timing was just right, I began to whisper in my mother-in-law's ear. Mom, you see, Kevin is about to get married, but Jake still doesn't know. What if he gets out and goes looking for Kevin, and they rekindle their old flame? You're right, what should we do about that? Mom, I think we should quietly let him out, on the condition that he stays far away and stops bothering Kevin. If Kevin can't find him, he'll give up, and then he can live happily with Sophie. Well, my mother-in-law hesitated. Mom, didn't you say you'd listen to me? Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Let's just think of it as doing good for the baby in my belly. I said, rubbing my stomach. All right then. My mother-in-law gritted her teeth. But that Jake really isn't a good person. Seeing her agree, I immediately sent a message to Kevin. While my mother-in-law was taking a shower, I asked Kevin to invite Sophie over. As soon as Sophie walked in, she saw my mother-in-law completely naked, and I noticed her subtly furrow her brows. I knew that as long as I didn't say anything, my mother-in-law wouldn't obediently put on clothes, which suited me perfectly. I quickly handed her the nightgown from last time, then signaled Kevin to go in. Kevin immediately went into the bathroom. Mom, wear this one, it looks good on you. All right, my daughter-in-law really understands me, my mother-in-law said as she dressed, chatting with Sophie. Sophie, you look really beautiful today. You came to see Kevin, right? Where did that kid run off to, the bathroom? Sophie stared wide-eyed at the brightly colored, sexy nightgown, still speechless. Just then, Kevin's voice came through, Mom, come help me scrub my back. Okay, I'm coming. This kid. Sophie, wait for me a moment, all right? Mother-in-law went in without even putting on her clothes. Sophie looked a bit pale and whispered to me, Sister-in-law, do they usually get along like this? Yeah. I acted as if it was nothing unusual. We usually don't wear clothes after showering. That outfit on mother-in-law is actually mine. Does it look good? When you marry in, the three of us will wear it together. That's not necessary. Sophie looked resistant. It's nothing, just a small thing. Once you come over, Kevin will have both a boyfriend and a girlfriend. What did you say? Kevin has a boyfriend too? Yeah, didn't you know? Mother-in-law didn't tell you? Don't worry, his boyfriend will be out of prison soon. Then the three of you can hang out together. Sophie's face darkened. No need. No wonder you're in such a rush to get married. What a bunch of oddballs you are. I'm telling you, I'm not going through with this wedding. Goodbye. Sophie turned and walked away. Just by looking at her expression, I knew it was a success. When has Grace ever been treated like this? The next day, she stormed over, yelling, "You, Margaret. How dare you bully my daughter like that?" Mother-in-law looked completely confused. What's going on, in-laws? Sophie didn't say a word yesterday before she left. In-laws? Bah. How dare you say that? You shameless woman, it's bad enough you don't dress properly yourself, but your son likes men, and you still expect my daughter to marry into your family and serve you. Bah. I'm telling you, I'll block the way from now on. Who else would want to marry into your family? Grace had a fierce personality. My mother-in-law had originally planned to ask someone to help Kevin find a partner, but every time the person was about to come in, Grace would drag them away, adding all sorts of exaggerated bad things. Just as my mother-in-law was getting anxious, Kevin disappeared. That's when she remembered Jake was out, and in her anger, she pounded the wall, wanting to confront me. I rubbed my belly, and she couldn't say a word. Not long after, Kevin called me, saying he wanted to treat me to a meal to thank me. He asked if I wanted to divorce his brother Vincent. He also said he knew my mother-in-law wouldn't agree to our divorce, so to show his gratitude, a few days ago he got his brother drunk and made Vincent sign the divorce papers. Hearing this, I immediately accepted his invitation. He booked a private room, and when I arrived, he and Jake were sitting together. Kevin saw me coming and greeted me warmly. Sister-in-law, you're here. Thank you so much. Without you, Jake and I would be finished. Here's the divorce agreement, take a look. No problem, we're kind of helping each other out, I said, taking the divorce agreement. When I saw Vincent's signature, something felt off. Why does this handwriting look a bit strange? Suddenly, I felt my legs go weak and my whole body grow limp. What's going on? I hadn't drunk anything. Kevin smiled at me. Of course it's strange, because I signed it. Didn't expect that, did you, sister-in-law? This time, I sprayed the drug on the paper. I looked up and saw Kevin and Jake staring at me with ill intent. Why? Aren't we on the same side? I asked, while secretly pressing the power button 3 times quickly. Before I passed out, I saw that the location had been successfully sent to the police. When I woke up again, I found myself tied up, and Kevin was fiddling with a tripod in front of me. Oh, you're awake. Kevin, what are you doing? Nothing much, I should be thanking you. But these past few days, I've seen how you've treated my mom. I don't like women, but no matter what, she's my mom. Sister-in-law, if you're going to act like this, you have to pay a price, right? Kevin slowly walked toward me. I glanced at the time, wondering when the police would arrive. Sister-in-law, you know my mom really wants a grandchild. My brother can't have kids, so it has to be me. Kevin sat down beside me. Didn't you say you don't like women? Right, I don't like women. I can't bring myself to do it, don't worry. I've been sterilized. But Jake said he doesn't mind. Sister-in-law, you know, Jake is the only son in his family. We want a child too. If my mom finds out you're not pregnant, she'll be heartbroken. Why don't you have a baby? It's better for everyone. At that moment, Jake walked in, staring straight at me. No, Kevin, if you do this, even if I get pregnant, I won't give birth to the child. No, you will, Kevin patted the camera and smiled at me. You'll definitely have the baby. Otherwise, I'll send the video to uncle and aunt. Sister-in-law, you don't want everyone to see it, do you? Kevin gave Jake a high five, then walked out. Before closing the door, he looked at me and said, Sister-in-law, don't leave these days. Stay here and go back after you're pregnant. I widened my eyes and looked at him, frantically groping behind me. It wasn't until my hand touched the ashtray that I regained some composure. I looked at Jake, calculating my chances of success. I wondered when the police would arrive. What if I missed? What if Kevin came back? With 2 men here, did I still have any chance of succeeding? Just as Jake was about to pounce, I clenched the ashtray behind me, ready to strike. At that moment, the door suddenly opened, and Vincent rushed in. Honey, I'm here to save you. Jake was startled and prepared to attack Vincent. Panic surged in my heart as I urged Vincent to be careful. Just then, the police came in. Don't move. Police. Jake and Kevin were both taken away by the police. After giving our statements, Vincent and I stepped outside. I asked him, "How did you know I was here?" Vincent hesitated for a moment, then lowered his head. "I've actually been watching over you all along. When I saw you go out alone, I got worried, so." Seeing him like this, my heart ached. When Kevin was taking the statement earlier, he told everything. He knows it all. Actually, that day I was going to tell you that I can have a baby for you. Honestly, I never really cared about having children, we weren't together for that reason. But you've really disappointed me. Wife, I'm sorry. I was too afraid you'd despise me. How would you see me if you found out? I was scared you'd regret it. What if you want children later? I wanted to tell you from the start, but Mom said it was all my moment of confusion. I regret it, wife, truly. Vincent, let's get a divorce. I looked at him, my gaze calm. Wife. Vincent tried to hold me back. Don't say anything. From the beginning, you never cared about my feelings. How many times have I told you I mind the lack of boundaries between you and your mother? You ignored it. When I clashed with your mom, all you knew was to give gifts, not to solve the problem. Even if you had said we should move out, that would have been better. But you didn't. You did nothing. You're just a coward. Wife, I was wrong, I'm sorry, wife, I've wronged you, I'll change, please give me one more chance. Let me go, Vincent. Even if you can change, I won't accept a man who sent me to another man's bed. Vincent was stunned, his eyes wide as he looked at me. After a moment, his voice hoarse, he said, "Fine, we'll get a divorce." Back home, Vincent and I both kept these things to ourselves without saying a word. A month later, I was leaving with my suitcase when my mother-in-law stopped me. "Evelyn, you're still pregnant, where are you going?" I pulled the suitcase from her hands. "Vincent and I are divorced. I'm leaving." Divorced? There's still a 30-day cooling-off period. Vincent, go cancel it now. My mother-in-law urged Vincent. Mom, the 30 days have already passed. Evelyn and I are no longer husband and wife. You're crazy. If she leaves, who would still want to marry you? And the child you're giving up on it. No need, I'm not pregnant. What? How dare you lie to me? My mother-in-law lunged at me, claws out. Let me tell you, our Wang family spent so much money to bring you in, and you won't give us at least one son or daughter before leaving? I spit on that. Impossible. If Vincent can't have children, then you'll have Kevin's, or else. I slapped my mother-in-law right across the face, and before she could react, I slapped her again. She clutched her face, staring at me in disbelief. You don't even know, do you? Kevin's been sterilized and even thrown in jail. Looks like you'll never hold a grandchild in your arms in this lifetime. Impossible. You're lying to me. How could Kevin do such a thing? Stop talking nonsense, or I'll beat you to death. Grandma lunged at me again, but Vincent stopped her. Mom, stop it. What Evelyn said is true. She must be framing Kevin. How could Kevin do such a thing? Stop her, don't let her leave. Mom, let Evelyn go. We already owe her too much. You unfilial son, are you trying to kill your mother with worry? I ignored them and walked out, dragging my luggage behind me. Vincent shouted after me, "Mom, what's wrong with you? Wake up." Not long after, I heard that Margaret had gone mad. Every day in the neighborhood, she would see a child and call him her grandson, trying to run off holding him. The neighbors despised her, and Vincent had no choice but to quit his job and take her back to their hometown to care for her. Later, I heard that Jake in prison was diagnosed with AIDS, and Kevin's test results came back positive. Freed from the shackles of marriage, I threw myself entirely into my work and kept getting better and better.